Throughout Mortal Kombat 9, Raiden receives visions of past events from the first 7 games in a bid to help him change them. So I'd like to go over them all here to explain what is being depicted and the neat little details that can easily be missed thanks to the swiftness of their appearance. It's worth noting that these visions use the MK9 models where possible, which means the designs are often inaccurate. I'll be ignoring times when the costumes and stages don't line up with the games being referenced, unless there's something interesting to discuss there. So let's go back to the beginning, or rather the end, and see if we can untangle this yarn ball of a cannon. Welcome to Cannonball. We'll start with the big stream of visions that lay out the main event of the old timeline, specifically surrounding Raiden. The first vision depicts Raiden's fight with Taven in Shao Kahn's throne room in Armageddon. Being his last known activity aside from his fight with Shinnok in the game's intro, which we'll be seeing something similar to later on anyway, this makes sense as our starting point. Strangely, they're obviously using an older model for Taven, so I'm not sure why it's not the one in his mother's armour, which he obtained long before this. The use of the MK9 throne room does raise the question of whether this is supposed to be the same one, or if Kahn just has multiple throne rooms, given just how different they always appear. Next, we flash back just a little to a scene we didn't see, but heard about, Raiden joining the villainous alliance in the name of protecting Earthrealm. This either suggests that Raiden approached these four rather than Shinnok, the actual leader of the alliance, or it's just an easier way to convey the idea without words than Dark Raiden standing before Shinnok. Next is Raiden giving life to zombie Liu Kang, which was established as his doing in his Armageddon bio, but not referenced anywhere else. And kudos on including his chest and neck wounds from his deception model on the MK9 model here. Sadly, these details don't apply to his in-game battle damage or zombie form. The location is, I think, one of the rooftop stages, with the stone altar from the cathedral. The edge of the roof, to me, suggests this is atop the original Sky Temple, which is where most people would assume Raiden performed his ritual, even though it wasn't. Next, we have 2 in a row derived from the Deception intro. Raiden and the Sorcerer's failed attempts to beam Onaga to death that forces Raiden to blow himself up, and the prior fight between Raiden and the Deadly Alliance, specifically referencing this kick that was always a highlight of this scene for me. And the background used here is Shang Tsung's throne room from MK1 as a stand-in for his palace. Then we go to the prior game's intro with Raiden explaining the Deadly Alliance to his allies, including a lower polyfrost on the island. I can't tell which stage is being used here, but the wall behind them could indicate something. The next one is not entirely clear. The pose is a direct reference to Sub-Zero's DA ending, where he brings Frost home after defeating the Sorcerers. This never happened, as Sub-Zero never made it to the final battle and remained in Outworld until sometime after Raiden's transformation. Based on its placement in this reverse sequence, this is presumably meant to represent Sub-Zero's ascension to Grandmaster of the Lin Kuei, whereupon he pledges his clan's allegiance to Raiden and the defense of Earthrealm. The background appears to be simple concept art based on the icy arch featured in the stage used in the original scene. Then, Raiden stands before the Outer World Investigation Agency's portal device that was created between MK4 and Deadly Alliance, featured in MK vs DC Universe where they took this model from, and destroyed by Su Hao, one of the most important characters in MK. Interestingly, Jax still has his submachine gun from DCU on his back, which is either a nod to the 3D era or a holdover from when Jax was going to keep it in MK9. Then we have Raiden cradling Liu Kang's body where he fell, which I guess implies that the prior 2 visions are actually Raiden visiting those characters to bring them into the fight, which makes one wonder why they didn't include Frost in the Sub-Zero image to help make the time frame of it clearer. Either that or move those 2 to after this to use them to represent the years-long peace between MK4 and DA. Interestingly, it was actually Kung Lao who found the body. In fact, Raiden's bio discussing his return doesn't even mention Liu Kang. I would have included Kung Lao beside Raiden to imply Raiden arrived right after Lao found the body. Either way, we now move on to MK4, which is depicted by Raiden clashing with Shinnok in what I think is the Netherrealm stage. I think this is the model used for Shinnok in the story's final scene, and this is actually our best look at it due to it being opaque and being shown in a wide shot. Interestingly, this is the first time we've heard of a clash between the 2 during the events of MK4. One could always assume there was one given their millennia-spanning rivalry, but this is our first confirmation. Then, Shao Kahn is defeated by Liu Kang in MK3, using the rooftop stage where this game ends instead of the throne room to represent the actual final boss stage of MK3. The way Kahn clutches his chest here always gave me the impression that Liu Kang may have bested him with the same move he uses to avenge Kung Lao in this game. After all, that move is born out of his rage at Lao's murderer, which didn't happen originally. Perhaps this is implying that the rage within our hero originally came out because of the invasion, but Raiden's interference interference caused it to come out sooner, which helped set up the later rift between the two. Then comes a shot of the invasion. Pretty basic, but this is the only time we see Baraka in relation to the invasion, since he's completely absent from the final third of the game. After this is Motaro running Johnny Cage through with a spear. Raiden will see this vision again later in the game, but we won't in the interest of pacing. This is a callback to Johnny's death at the hands of Khan's extermination squads as per his trilogy bio. The choice of Motaro makes sense for a depiction of MK3, using the new sub-boss to kill off an established hero to set him up as a threat, similar to Annihilation with Khan killing Johnny, and also for MK9 to have this urgent vision set up the domino effect that results from Raiden taking action here. Next, Raiden and Nightwolf stand over Sindel's empty grave. We'll ignore the fact that there is no such hole in the actual scene. This detail is needed to wordlessly convey the idea. What's more interesting is that Nightwolf randomly being here, given his total lack of connection to Sindel at this point, could imply that he found the lack of remains, possibly after sensing spiritual energies from the resurrection. Is it possible then that the desert is actually on Matokan land now that Sindel died in Earthrealm? Then Raiden is apparently present for Jax receiving his metal arms. Why wasn't he with the SF characters when they were pulled through time then, MK11, you dumb bitch? I've no idea what background is being used here, maybe one from DCU? I believe the layout is a nod to Cyrax's ending in MK Gold. We then see Khan's defeat in MK2, which is depicted the same way as it plays out in this game, which I think is dumb. Liu Kang is so enraged this time that he does the exact same thing he did originally? No, it should be something else like an uppercut or just Khan defeated on the ground like before. This diminishes that moment in my eyes. Kano's imprisonment is an odd one to depict, seeing how this game gives no reason for Kano not to be imprisoned this time around. I assume they didn't want to show Sonya imprisoned twice, but they could show something else like Jax freeing her. But this implies that Raiden somehow caused Kano to not be imprisoned and instead become chummy with Shang Tsung. Maybe him stopping Sonya from fighting Shang causes a secret ripple that leads to Kano and Shang really hitting it off after Chapter 2. Next is the attack on the Wuxi Academy by the Tarkatans, led by Baraka. This is in line with the original version, as Baraka's MK2 bio confirmed his role in this, even though he himself is not seen in this game's depiction of the event. I don't know why the Tarkatans are heading in the direction of the portal they're presumably meant to be swarming out of based on Baraka's position, and Shang Tsung's guards not being here contradicts both prior depictions of the event. Then comes Liu Kang standing over the defeated Shang Tsung. Very simple. The penultimate vision here is Kung Lao revealing himself and fighting Baraka, a nod to the Shaolin Monks intro. However, the location has changed from the throne room to the courtyard as per the altered version of the event we see later when he reveals himself to fight Scorpion. Maybe that's supposed to explain the difference in his outfit in both scenes, but that's probably just them fucking up the costume choices again. And the final vision is the fight between Johnny Cage and Reptile that serves as the first fight of the NetherRealm era, which is the logical place to stop the stream. I just realised that that sounds like I'm saying stop streaming the game because it's so bad. Not what I meant to say, but that is funny. Interestingly, Reptile is attacking Johnny from above, so either he likes using jump-ins or this is him jumping right at Johnny instead of jumping down to the stage first. Still a more accurate depiction of the scene than the MKX comic had. From here, Raiden's visions are scattered across the story, popping up when it's time for Raiden to make a change. The first such instance occurs in Chapter 2, when he sees Liu Kang defeating Shang Tsung with a flying kick. This detail has been consistent since MK2, and I have to give them credit for sticking to it. It's like MK9 actually had some respect for the canon, yeah? Raiden then sees the Kung Lao vision again in Chapter 3, so they really didn't need to make the Kano one. In the same scene, Raiden sees Bi-Han's death and transformation into Noob Saibot. This shows Bi-Han having been decapitated, similar to Scorpion's eventual presentation of his skull after immolating him. This either implies that Scorpion originally just decapitated him as payback for when Bi-Han did it to him, and Raiden's interference leads to Quan Chi having to use a trump card that enrages Hanzo into burning him first, or that it's artistic license in the name of creating a slick transition from Sub-Zero to Noob. The latter may have worked better if they'd used Bi-Han's mask instead of Kuai Liang's. In Chapter 5, Raiden has a vision of his future self sending the visions. Instead of just taking a screenshot, they recreated it, but with his face wounds, his expression, and his eye colour not being consistent. Good job. In the transition to Chapter 6, Raiden sees the aftermath of the MK2 can't defeat vision. The effort put into these visions seems a tad inconsistent. In Chapter 6 proper, he sees Sonya captured a la MK2. Chapter 7 brings a vision of Smoke's transformation into a cyborg. The model used is Sector's, but in blue for some reason. Look, I know Smoke used to be purple, but this is a bit much. They could have used Cyber Sub-Zero's model here instead to imply that Sub-Zero was given Smoke's Cyber Shell, but maybe they didn't want to reveal that model just yet. In that case, use one of the generic cyborgs that use Cyrax or Sector's model with a grey palette. The location looks like an outworld building, but I think it's supposed to represent the Lin Kuei Temple. I'm happy to see it's not some snowy location before Sub-Zero takes over. In Chapter 8, Raiden sees Sindel using her Banshee Scream to imply her resurrection from MK3. Raiden recognises her instantly, which could imply a prior relationship. In Chapter 12, Raiden sees Johnny's death, but we don't. And the final vision depicts a Solnado engulfing New York. This is based on the plot point that all of Earth's inhabitants save for Raiden's champions lose their souls early on in the invasion. The Solnado as a concept didn't exist until Deadly Alliance, but the original image was vague enough that it works. Also, the city in MK3 was actually unnamed originally, but I've seen it suggested it's supposed to be Chicago, where Midway was based. To cap off, let's quickly discuss which visions did and did not come to pass. Johnny and Reptile still fight since Raiden only just got the visions. Kung Lao does reveal himself in the courtyard, but he fights Scorpion instead of Baraka. I don't know why he'd be fighting Baraka anyway, seeing how he's already been eliminated by now. Scorpion kills Sub-Zero with the decapitation involved, but he immolates him as well now. And Bi-Han still becomes noob. Liu Kang defeats Shang Tsung with whatever move the player desires. It can be the flying kick. The attack on the academy still happens. Sonya is captured, but she is freed before she can be taken to the arena. Kano is not imprisoned. He joins Shang Tsung in dicking around in the forest. Kuai Liang becomes a cyborg in Smoke's place. Liu Kang defeats Khan in the same way as the vision shows. Sindel's resurrection still happens, and there's nothing to suggest Nightwolf and Raiden didn't find the empty grave. Same with Raiden witnessing Jax getting his arm upgrades, unless MK11 is taken into account, but Johnny is there, so who even knows? But unless it's a retcon, the vision depicts the arm sleeves, not the full cybernetics. The invasion still happens, but Johnny's death is prevented by Raiden killing Motaro, and the Solnado is prevented from growing to its full size by Nightwolf. Liu Kang does not defeat Shao Kahn during the invasion, as Raiden kills him before Kahn gets through the portal. Raiden does clash with Shinnok, but it's now in Earthrealm and both have backup. The Special Forces having portal tech is definitely a thing, though the form it takes is unclear. Sub-Zero pledging the Lin Kuei to the protection of Earthrealm potentially occurs, especially with Raiden sending people to join the new Lin Kuei. And anything from Deadly Alliance onwards is prevented because the timeline has changed enough by that point to lead to an entirely different series of events. So all in all, Raiden didn't do too bad. It would be cool if Mortal Kombat had included such visions, either as Liu Kang reminiscing about how things have changed, or the individual characters having a sense of deja vu over similarities to old timelines, much like Raiden in MK11. But while those are technically the same type of visions, the lack of the visual effects in MK11 is a real shame. Imagine them using still images and depicting a wider range of scenarios like different revenants, different alliances, etc. That would be cooler than the same choreography in different locations and arbitrarily different costume colours. If you liked this video, why not subscribe and support me on Patreon like these fine people here? I mean, this video is going public on my birthday, so you are obligated to do this. Today's recommended video is Mortal Kombat 2011 Raiden Sucks by Sonic Heart XD. I'm in it.